Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka YouTube's number 2, and this video we're breaking down how time travel works in the Umbrella Academy. The show is filled with a lot of timey-wimey wibbly wobbly stuff, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down all of the timelines that happen in it and how the show avoids creating a paradox. This is real heavy doc, and because of this there will be heavy spoilers, terrible puns, and of course bad jokes. Hopefully though, you come away from this video learning something, and if you do, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for videos like this every day. With all out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the breakdown. Time travel. It's one of the most fascinating things in fiction, and over the years it's been used across a wealth of media to tell a multitude of stories. Humanity is absolutely obsessed with it, and many have dedicated their entire lives to trying to find a way to go back and change things. The Umbrella Academy has used this notion to great effect, and Season 2 predominantly centers around the Hargreeves trying to avert the apocalypse by altering events in the past. Time travel was first introduced through number 5, and it's through him that our video will predominantly center. After realizing he could teleport great distances, the character tried to hurtle himself through time, and he actually succeeded in doing so. However, it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be, and after jumping too far, 5 found himself on the opposite side of Doomsday. Unable to go back, 5 and the world's most beautiful mannequin spent several decades in the barren wasteland that was Earth, and after several years of wandering, he was recruited by the Temps Commission. They stated that if he agreed to serve them for 5 years, that he could retire to a time and place of his choosing and completely forget about all that had gone on, though some things are too beautiful to forget. 5 agreed to this but reneged on the deal and instead travelled to his family 8 days before the apocalypse in order to stop it from happening. Due to miscalculating the time jump, time travelled through 5 as he travelled through time, and the character ended up going back to his younger body. He and his family tried to end Armageddon, but they actually ended up causing it, and Season 1 ended on a big cliffhanger with the world being destroyed. Now this creates a perfect loop in which the future changes the past and causes the events to happen in a way that allows for the future too as well. Thus in the first season we completely avoid a paradox and everything happens the way that it was supposed to in the first place. However, where things get a bit complicated is that the group actually jump back to the 60s and end up altering events massively throughout the course of the second season. Now before we talk about the show and how the timeline in it operates, we have to talk about time travel itself. It's something that theoretical physicists have studied for generations, and predominantly the widely accepted idea was that time travel was impossible. This is because of a theory known as the grandfather paradox. This states that if one were to travel back in time and kill their grandfather before they were born, that their grandfather would never create their parent, thus they would never be born and could not travel back in time to kill their grandfather in the first place. Clearly, the show does not operate like this, as there are major elements that negate this being a possibility. The second theory that a lot of physicists subscribe to is called the Bootstrap Paradox. This states that events in the future affect those in the past and everything is a perfect loop. A good anecdote to explain this is that, say there's a scientist, one day whilst he's watching the Heavy Spoilers show, he hears a knock on the door. No one's there, but he finds a book on his doorstep detailing how to build a time machine. Using this, he creates one and then travels to the future. The scientist takes the book with him and leaves it on his own doorstep so that his past version can create the time machine. This creates a perfect loop, and it's something that was adapted by the Netflix show Dark up until about its 3rd season, which it then segued into our next way of thinking. Now that is the many worlds theory. Now in quantum physics, when you observe something, this is often known as taking a measurement. We'll be using the term quantum measurement as this is sort of applied across the board in this theory. Now when we carry out a quantum measurement on an electron, when we look at it, we can see exactly where it is. However, before we look at it, it could be in a different position, and there are many possibilities to where it could have been before we looked. In quantum physics, this is known as a superposition, as we don't know the exact place that it is, so it could potentially be everywhere. This degree of varying possibilities creates a number of alternatives known as a wave function, and as all are valid and possible, there may be alternate realities. This was demonstrated in the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, which stated that before a particle is measured, it exists in all states at once due to the statistical possibilities that surround it. However, once we observe it, all the particles come together and form this one position. So if we can apply this thinking to electrons, which pretty much make up everything, we can of course apply it to absolutely everything. Thus, if we placed a cat in a box with a radioactive substance that has a 50% chance of killing and decaying it, the cat exists in both states of being alive and dead, and it's only upon observing it, or rather measuring this state, that we see how it exists for us. Thus, when applied beyond the box, we realize that if this theory is correct, that everything exists in multiple states of realities across branching universes in which every decision has a vast degree of outcomes that all alter a timeline from a certain point. Yes, my head's exploding too. Now this is what theory the Umbrella Academy subscribes to, and you may have also seen it in Avengers Endgame, in that the heroes travel back to the past and in altering it create branching timelines so that nothing in the past affects their own future. Tony Stark even drops the name of David Deutsch, one of the many great thinkers behind this notion, and it's slowly becoming more and more accepted as the main time travel theory. In that, one can go back to the past, but in doing so, every choice they make that alters it will create an alternate world, because you can't change your past as your present will always be your present. It was also seen in that episode of Community, you know, season 3, episode 4 with the dice. Anyway, the idea of alternate realities was actually teased all the way back in season 1 of the show, when we watched today, namely March 29th, in which a completely different set of events played out that had a lot of different outcomes. Namely Allison and Luther kissing, which, you know what, I'm still rooting for you guys. Now 5 changed this, and thus the timeline did no longer remain as the main one, though it would have continued on in its separate reality. This would have still led to the apocalypse, and thus it becomes null and void past a certain point. Now the next alternate timeline that we see happens at the start of season 2. We learn that after Vanya was taken in by the FBI, her powers went into overload and she destroyed their headquarters just as JFK's motorcade was passing. Because Vanya is Russian and was suspected as a spy, the US declared war on the country and the Umbrella Academy intervened, fighting in the battle. The Russians deployed nukes to destroy them, which the US retaliated with, and thus the apocalypse happened once more. With the help of Hazel, 5 travelled back, and in doing so created a brand new alternate timeline in the 60s, which the second season predominantly takes place in. Now things get more complicated when he meets his younger version in the past. This actually creates another branching timeline in which he sends himself back, but rather than being a young boy, he's an old man, or his younger self. Now, it gets confusing. Look, we don't know the outcome of this timeline, but as 5 did not know the events in the first season, other than it led to Luther and 5 travelling back to the 60s, he probably followed in the same footsteps as they did, taking the group back there after he failed to change things in the future, only this time he'd be an older man. Now, though I have seen some people say that the way the season ends, it is another alternate reality on top of this, it's actually just a continuation of the timeline that we saw play out in the 60s. The Temps did promise to avert the apocalypse, and for better or worse, they did keep up their end of the bargain. Now as Vanya, being a member of the Academy, is what led to Armageddon, they may have altered several events to change things, and it is possible that they even subliminally guided Hargreeves towards picking children that were not powerful enough to end the world. This is why we see the Sparrow Academy at the end with Ben, who, though not weak, is certainly not strong enough to destroy the planet. Hargreeves is also alive in this timeline, possibly due to his family sticking with him instead of leaving like how the Hargreeves originally did. Now, we don't know where things will head yet in the next season, but if the family jump once more, they will further fracture reality and may even end up back in a timeline in which the apocalypse still happens. I can't see them doing this, and I think this will be the reality that they remain in, as it's the one place that we know for definite things aren't going to go to hell. Though they might now that these guys are back. Now the Temps did keep their word and alter events in a way in which the world would not end, and perhaps, you know, this is the way that the events need to happen in order to avoid all of the realities in which Armageddon was the only outcome. In conclusion, when we see time travel in the show, we should take it as the group going back and forth between alternate realities, which will continue on after they're gone. This allows everything to be a possibility, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be a positive outcome. Maybe we just have to accept that the Umbrella Academy will always cause the apocalypse, and if we want a real good time, we have to learn to love the Sparrow Academy. All hail Hydra. Now that's our breakdown of the time travel and timelines in the show. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, but if you have any questions, then make sure you leave them in the comments below, and I, or someone much smarter than me, will hopefully get back to you. If you want to learn more about the Sparrow Academy, then make sure you check out our video linked at the end, as we go over who the main members are, and also give our theories on how one of them may be an opposite to number 5. Don't forget that every month on the 15th we give away free Blu-rays, and all you have to do to be in with the chance of winning the MCU Infinity Saga box set is leave a like and subscribe with notifications on. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server, linked in the description, or at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video. You've been the best, I've been Definition, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.